when when your job is sales, it kind of it kind of hurts.
Yeah, I was talking to a author friend of mine, and he was actually going on a silent retreat. So even though you lost your voice, there are people out there who pay good money to go on retreats and not even use their voice.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I could probably do that if I was going on like a meditation retreat or that sort of thing, but I don't know if I would want to spend too much time being silent. I have too much to say. So,
Well, good. We're in the right place to talk. And
exactly.
so, yeah, I know you founded Pixel True. So, like, tell us a little bit about what that is.
Sure. So Pixel True is a design agency. I actually didn't found Pixel True. Bought Pixel True on my exit from finance. So I spent about 17 years in finance, and along with my business partner, and we both decided that we kind of had enough of working in finance. And so we took some of the capital that we had saved up working in finance and bought Pixel True from a young guy. He was probably 25 years old, living in Bali, and had built this design agency with about 12 employees. And we've taken it from there, and we've grown it to just over 70 designers at this point. And so we've worked with thousands of different businesses and brands, and as large as KPMG and as small as brand new startups. So it's been quite the adventure.
Wow, I didn't know you were in finance. What were you doing in finance?
So I spent nearly a decade in wholesaling. So I worked for a couple of different mutual fund companies, and then I did high net worth financial planning on top of that. So I had my own firm for a few years, and I worked for a really large firm in Canada called Nicola Wealth Management as well.
Nice.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what I do as of right
Yeah,
now. I
yeah, I
uh
saw that.
I haven't decided to leave. I feel, but I mean, it's different if you work for like a large institution versus
Yeah.
I'm more of a freedom fighter, fighting for the people,
Yes.
sort of
Yeah. So
say.
I did that for 3 years, having my own firm. We were under the umbrella of an insurance company called Sun Life, but we had free reign to utilize whatever products we wanted. I just found that, particularly in Canada, the industry is being regulated to death.
Hmm.
To the point where it's very difficult as an advisor to offer much in the way of value to your clients because you're so heavily restrained by what you can say, can't say, what you can and can't do, that sort of thing, that you wind up almost acting contrary to the desires and dreams of your clients.
Yeah, the world is I think the world's starting to wake up a little bit.
I hope
I
so.
especially like in the healthcare industry with what that guy in New York did. Did you see that?
Hmm. Hmm.
I think they caught the guy,
Luigi
or
Mangione. Yeah.
apparently, or if he is the guy, who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're spot on. The large financial institutions are making it so that they're making it very difficult to be able to do the right thing.
Yeah.
It's basically what it comes down to. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's the way I live my life is like, am I doing the right thing? Yes or no? Is it going to be popular? I don't care. As long as I continue, I feel
Yeah.
like I just feel like if I continue to do the right thing, it'll work out.
I entirely agree. That's always been how I've led my decision making process, and it has worked out. And I think if you're an adamant believer that you are making decisions in the best interest of everybody around you, that will work because people will be attracted to that. They'll be attracted to your passion, they'll be attracted to your compassion, and they'll be attracted to your desire to help others.
Yeah, I mean, I was a guest on someone else's podcast. They were asking me like, how do you compete with the big institutions? I was just like, you don't. You can't win that battle because if you try
Hmm.
and play a game that someone else is playing
Yeah,
and they are much better at that game than you are, then you're just like setting yourself up for failure. And I'm sure you know that in the
yeah,
space you're in now is
yes.
you can't market like Coca-Cola.
No,
There's only one Coca-Cola,
that's
and it's
right.
a global brand. Uh, but there are things you can do to start crafting your message and developing a community feel to separate
Yeah.
yourself from the big players in town. Is that like kind of what you're doing at Pixel
Yeah.
True?
Yeah, you have to have a unique value proposition. And so, you know, there are a ton of design agencies out there that can make pretty websites, and that's fine. What we wanted to do was something a little different in terms of when we're building something, we're we're building we're building an actionable portal. We want people to, when they go on to a website, we want them to take action. We want them to do something. And having something that looks pretty doesn't necessarily drive action. You have to be utilizing human psychology, heuristics, cognitive biases, those sorts of things in order to create an environment where somebody can expedite their decision making process and they can move forward quickly knowing that what they're about to buy addresses their particular concerns and elicits the emotion that's required for them to move from, sitting on the fence to taking action. Because that's 80% of people are just sitting on the fence, waiting for the pain of remaining sitting on the fence to accelerate past the point where the pain of making changes. And so we're just trying to showcase to them that they can solve that problem, that the pain of making that change is less than the pain of staying where they are right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's all comes down to how do you get someone to take action,
Yeah.
especially in like service-based
Hmm.
industries, unlike just like, hey, this is a pretty dress. I'm going out this weekend. I need a pretty dress.
That's right.
Add to cart. It'll be here in 24 hours or less, probably.
Yeah. So that's about 3% of consumers are sitting in a position where they are ready to buy right now. Another 17% will never buy. That just they have no interest in that product, that category, that service, whatever it may be. Another 80% of people are sitting on the fence. They are waiting for something to drive them to take action. And so all we're doing in the creation of these websites, the way that we write copy, that sort of thing, is ensuring that we are getting everything out of the way that would stop them from making a decision. So we have these biases in our brain. A good example of one is called the single option bias. So if you go and you're offered a single option to make a purchase of something, you're more likely to say no than yes.
Mhm.
Whereas if you're given two options for a similar product, you're much more likely to pick one of those two options than you are to say no. So just by making a simple change of adding an additional option, you've dramatically increased the likelihood that they're going to make a decision that takes them forward to solving that problem that they're facing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've worked I've worked pretty hard this year to make our website better and
Hmm.
to make it more inviting, especially being in like the financial industry.
Yeah.
Like there's so many, buy this product, buy this, buy that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean people want to be in control or at least feel like they're in control of their decision making. So it's like, not ready to buy, send us
Hmm.
a question.
Hmm.
Not ready to move forward, schedule a non-obligation consult. So that
Yeah.
way you're not like saying, "Hey, Warren, send me your money, sign up as a
Hmm.
client."
That's right.
Because I mean, that's what the big institutions are doing because the big institutions feel like they can just throw money at problems and it'll work, which if you're a company like Google, you could probably do it that way and it'll work
Yeah.
because there's only one Google. But if you're Josh Krafchick, you can't do that in any sort of
Yeah.
way. You'll just turn people off pretty much immediately.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The second people feel a hard sell, they're gonna back right off. So you have to make it in a way where it is showcasing the method in which it's going to solve their problem. Have you ever heard of a concept called education-based sales?
I have, I don't know. I remember reading a book called like Persuasion by
Okay.
um
Yeah,
the
that's
guy
a
with
good
the
book.
Deanie. So it's basically like you want to handle like I mean, education is like educating someone, but also like the persuasion was like bring up all the concerns someone would have
Hmm.
before they even ask the question.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, tell me more
Yeah,
about
so
what
so
you're talking about.
persuasion is really about preparing for objections, right? You're setting it up, dealing with all of the objections before somebody can even bring them out. Education-based sales is a concept that was popularized by a gentleman named Chet Holmes. So Chet Holmes wrote The Ultimate Sales Machine, and he was Charlie Munger's right-hand man, in charge of a lot of their sales teams. Um, so essentially, it's a three-part process. It's educate somebody on the problem, position the solution to the problem, then position yourself as the best provider of that solution. Okay. Um, and if you're constantly bringing people to, here's the potential problem that you are facing, here's a problem that people in your industry are facing, here's what's going on behind the scenes and how it's affecting you, you can draw somebody into the conversation by showing them something that they either didn't recognize before or they're already feeling the pain from it. Then by positioning a solution, and this is all about, value-based marketing. It's about giving people as much value as you possibly can, to establish trust and to bring them into a deeper relationship with you. You can showcase to them how you solve the problem, and they'll decide whether they're going to be a DIY purchaser, they're going to do it themselves, a done with you purchaser, or a done for you purchaser. And then you position yourself as the provider of that solution, saying, hey, look, I've showed you how you can solve the problem. Do you want to do it yourself? Do you want to do it with me? Or do you want it done for you? And then they're going to choose which one of those best suits where they are in their life at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, some people just never want to relinquish control.
Yeah, and that's because the pain of making a change or delegating to somebody else is still larger than the pain of staying the way that they are right now. And so if you can showcase to them that pain of change is less than the pain of staying as they are, they're going to make that decision. As much as we are emotional creatures, humans as a species, we still have some rationalism inside of us, and we are looking at it and doing the math internally to determine whether change is more painful than staying where we are.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of consumers don't take time into consideration when they're valuing a purchase. Like
Yeah,
they're just like, what is the cost?
yeah,
Versus how much time is this going to take me and what is the investment involved?
yeah.
To me, it's like things that cost you money don't give you any value back. Things that get you value back is an investment. It's invested of saving time, money,
Hmm.
or both. So
Yeah.
when I look at something, it's like if it's going to cost me time and money, I just never do it. That's just like my protocol. Like looking at something, it's like, why would I buy this if it's going to cost me time and money? I'm not
Hmm.
getting any extra time back and it's costing me money and I'm not getting like the benefit.
Yeah,
Uh,
it needs to have an even stronger ROI, if it's going to be time and money.
yeah. I mean, something could be like an investment and it saves you a bunch of time. You may not get like a monetary
Hmm.
return on it. However, you're getting a being present in the moment, which
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of people undervalue their time.
absolutely. Yeah, the majority of people don't put a dollar value to their time. They don't understand, if you use economics, like a marginal return on investment, like
Utility.
trading time, yeah, marginal utility. They don't necessarily calculate what that time could be used to do something else. That was one of the first things, teaching financial advisors, as a wholesaler. That was one of the things that I was constantly teaching them is should you be doing this yourself or should you be outsourcing this to somebody else? And if you can get a greater return on putting this time that you're utilizing into something else, like revenue generating activity, then you should be outsourcing these other aspects of your business.
Yeah, it's tough though, because in the beginning of anyone doing that, you're not going to see a return on investment. And then you're sitting there with nothing to do. You've delegated
Hmm.
everything. And if sales are flat, you're like questioning yourself, like, oh man, like, am I making the right choice here? Because I'm just more money's going out than coming in right now. And now I have all this free time. What do I do? So
Yeah,
sometimes, if you're not coming up with like ideas or you don't have sales calls coming in, or you're just
yeah.
kind of like sitting there like with your thoughts, people are scared of their thoughts sometimes.
Yeah, and at that point, the value of, the marginal utility of your time is still pretty low.
Hmm.
right? Because there isn't something else that you could be doing that's revenue generating or valued at a similar dollar amount. Having said that, there is always something that you could be doing. So I wrote a book called Marketing Motivation Workbook for Financial Advisors that actually walks financial advisors through how to do this. And it's a daily check, like there's a daily checklist piece of this that is an accountability scorecard. So they can create a scoring system to track the marketing activities that they're doing, and they can't leave at the end of the day until they've scored a certain number of points.
Hmm.
So I basically broke all that down in that book about how an advisor can, if they're delegating specific administrative activities to somebody else, where they can be dedicating that time for themselves to create additional revenue.
Interesting.
Mhm.
I wonder if I'm scoring enough points. Probably not. I mean, I don't know. I mean, as any like business professional, I mean, I do things like a little different. Like you find the business professionals who are like sales, 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 sales,
Mhm.
and then you have some people that focus too much on the product. It's like finding that happy balance because if you
Yeah.
crush sales and then your product sucks, then
Mhm.
you're just constantly looking for more sales. If your product's
Yeah.
really good but no one knows who you are, then you're out of business.
Yeah. Yeah, it has to be a combination of the two. And in the scorecard, I've built both of those aspects in there, right? So, and different activities are worth different points depending on how geared towards revenue generation they are. So a sale is worth a lot more points than sending out a cold email. But working on a pitch or a proposal is also worth points because you're still moving yourself forward in terms of revenue generating activity.
Yeah, and a lot of business people get stuck in the activity versus sometimes it's best just to do nothing and then focus on strategy rather than having like a crappy strategy versus like I got to do activities, I got to do activities, I got to do activities. So how can like helping with messaging help bring down the amount of activity that someone would need to do to acquire clients from your point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question because messaging has such a massive impact. And I would return back to the idea of education-based sales on that. If you're constantly educating people and you're changing the way that you're speaking about a topic so that you are educating, you're going to have a greater impact. But I would say that strategy sessions are a part of your activity. Like you need to build that into your overall process on a one day a week should be your business strategy day. You shouldn't be doing sales 5 days a week because if you do that, you're never going to be able to fulfill all of the orders or all of the business that you're generating. You need to have one day where you're working on your business, not in your business. So you're constantly looking at your strategy, looking at the data that's telling you, okay, what activities are working, what activities are not working, what products are selling right now, what isn't selling, so that you can understand how you direct your activity in an efficient manner going forward. If you're just doing sales activity all day, every day, you're going to go off on a path that may not necessarily lead to any results because you're not going back and looking at what it is that you're doing and analyzing the success of particular activities.
Yeah, I'll have some business folks be like, "How much are you making from your podcast?" And I'll be like, "Nothing." And they're like, "Well, why are you doing it?" I was like, "Well, when I first started, no one wanted to talk to me because they just saw like, oh, you're in finance, you're going to sell me something." So
Hmm.
I figured a podcast would be a cool way to meet cool people, have a cool conversation, video it, and turn in the content and see what happens. And ultimately, like our organization doesn't rely on social media to find leads or to generate revenue. So
Hmm.
I figured if we get to meet cool people, have cool conversations, I don't know, who knows what door may open up, but
Yeah,
I have nothing to lose except I have a cool conversation with someone, which I feel like that's a good way to spend time.
it is. Yeah, I mean, and you're educating yourself because you're trying to focus on speaking with people that have more knowledge on a particular topic than you do. In addition, I'll say that having a podcast or doing um, educational content of this kind is incredibly valuable. So,
Mhm.
in the first year as an advisor, I made a Court of Table for $1 Million Roundtable. And the majority of that was because of doing things exactly like you're doing. I was giving presentations, I was talking to people about financial topics. It wasn't product, it wasn't, hey, you should use this whole life insurance policy, or here's the benefit of return of premium on critical illness policies, that sort of thing. It was all about here's some topics of general financial planning, or here's how to get the most out of your financial advisor, or whatever it may be. It was an educational topic that was addressing a particular pain point that somebody that the crowd was facing, rather than it being focused on pushing a product or pushing a particular sale down somebody's throat.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Charlie Munger earlier, and I was like, I heard an interview, and someone asked him some sort of question, and he says he just thinks about the opposite. It's like, how would you make this company good? He's like, well, I start with how would I destroy this company?
Mhm.
So it's like inversing your thinking and
Yeah.
working backwards could actually be more beneficial to like figuring out how you want to have those sort of conversations with folks rather than like, oh, you have this problem, I have this solution.
Yeah.
It's kind
That
of
I
like,
mean, the reverse engineering is essentially the focus on problem and pain, right? You're focusing on what are the problem and pain points rather than what are the opportunities. And by removing problem and pain, you essentially create opportunity.
yeah. And you could stumble across an opportunity that if you're going in with like, I got to sell this one product, now you're going in with a limited amount of how you could possibly help someone, which
Yeah.
also limits on how you could potentially help yourself and the company as well. Because like the more you are able to help someone, the larger investment they need to make, which is a win-win-win all across
Yeah.
the board.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the saying, if all you've got is a hammer as a tool, everything looks like a nail, right? Whereas if you've got a full tool belt, you've actually have the tools to be able to address the problems as they come up.
Yeah, yeah. We had someone on here that was in like the tech space, and I was like, I think it was like Joe Rogan, and during one of the stand-ups, he's like, if I send you into the woods with an axe, how long till you can send me an email? Or something along those lines. It's like if you have the right tools, like it makes life a lot easier. That's why you
Yeah.
invest in the right tools, the right systems, and rather than focusing on being a jack of all trades, like buy the system, invest in a product, invest in
Mhm.
a pro to if you're not comfortable handing off the keys of the kingdom to have someone completely do something, at least invest for them to build you a blueprint to follow.
Yeah.
So I mean, minimize your risk there. I mean, I feel like that's where a lot of people are. I think a lot of people lost trust, especially in like in the marketing space. But it seems like, from my point of view, from the outside looking in, it looks like things are getting better. It seems like the people who have been uh, faking it on social media, it seems like they're not getting the same traction that they once did.
Yeah. I mean, it's just somebody else faking it that's getting the traction now too. So it's just that I would say some of the algorithms have learned to recognize the Andrew Tates of the world and not necessarily drive as much traffic to those, knowing that they're going to flame out at some point, and then you lose all of that traffic.
So how does someone who's just getting started break through all the noise, especially if they have a good product, a good mission, despite people who are doing I wouldn't say illegal practices, but I would say unethical practices.
I'll focus on the ethical practices, maybe rather than the unethical side.
No, not like the unethical, but like some people are like doing things that are unethical.
Right.
But like someone's like out there, they just started a business, they want to break through. Like, how could they do
Mhm.
that through their messaging to help,
Yeah.
grow their brand?
Yeah, education on the problem and the pain that's in that, and then presenting a solution. But I would say that you need to take a step even further back from there, and it's really about understanding the ideal client profile. It's about creating an avatar for the person that you want to help. So if you can think of a particular individual that represents who you want to assist, and you can solve that person's problem and pain, you've got a product and service that you can then go out and market.
Mhm.
So for a lot of what we do, I have a particular individual in mind. Anytime I'm building a product or I'm building a service or a solution, I'm thinking of this person and how it's going to fix what they're currently going through. They happen to be a representative of a much larger group, but by building for them specifically, I know that it's going to solve that problem, and I have somebody that can test it, that can go through it and tell me where the existing problems or pain within my own system are. Then I go out and I market that by educating people, webinars, podcasts like this, going to conferences, speaking at events, and showcasing how we can fix that particular problem. And people are attracted to that. And because I'm passionate about giving value and helping other people, people want to be involved in that sort of a process.
So essentially just laying all your cards out on the table and having a good message behind it, and then
Yeah.
seeing who you attract. Because uh I hear people like say who's your avatar a lot, and that's something I've always struggled with. So like someone who's like struggling with like niching down per se, like
Hmm.
what would you say to that person in terms of like what they need to do in order to like define their target market without getting so narrow that there's like only 10 people in the world that they could
Yeah.
help?
Yeah. I mean,
Because if like I'm a farmer who loves Star Wars, the NBA, and fly fishing, like I mean you're getting very specific. Like you have who
yeah.
your avatar is, but I mean there's only so many people out there who like all of those things. I
Yeah.
mean one thing I heard was like I know nothing about marketing. I would say that's like my biggest Achilles heel, and I'm sure it's a lot of people's Achilles heel is like figuring out their marketing and their branding, and it's like
Hmm.
a world I don't understand fully. But one thing like I heard is just like you are your niche. Just like be yourself. But at the same time, like how do you like convey that to the world? Because I know there's a lot of people that I meet with. They're like, oh, I want to start a business, and they just like never do.
Yeah.
So they just don't know how to get started. So like, what would you tell that person out there in terms of like figuring out that avatar while at the same time being true to themselves and not like being fake, which
Yeah.
a lot of people are faking it.
Yeah. 100% agree. I would say it comes down to the passion. You have to be passionate about solving a particular problem set. So, if I'm say I'm an advisor and I want to deal with farmers that like Star Wars and are into fly fishing, okay, as you gave as an example.
Very particular.
Um, yeah, very particular. Those farmers are going to have a particular problem set, right? It's going to be succession planning, so transitioning their large property to next generation, which is usually going to be multiple children. So you have to determine how you're going to divide up those assets, that sort of thing. There's going to be insurance needs in the event of somebody getting hurt or there being liability against the property owner. There's going to be a particular set of problems that you're going to look at and want to solve. If you're extremely passionate about one solving one of those problems, you're then going to go and figure out what's the solution to that particular problem. So if it's succession planning, go out and speak to some accountants and lawyers, that sort of thing, who have dealt with that area before, build a whole program around here's how we can educate farmers on solving this, and then go out and you now have a profile for a particular problem set. Then you're going to try and find where do these people consume information. So if they are into Star Wars or if they're into fly fishing, you might want to get involved in groups that are in that particular area. And when you're talking to people in that group and they ask you, what do? You say, I work with farmers to solve this particular problem, right? And those individuals are then going to be able to point out within that group of fly fishermen who might fit that particular profile, or Star Wars enthusiasts, or whatever it may be. You're going to use those ancillary, not quantitative but qualitative metrics, of what they're interested in, as a location to meet those types of people. But it's going to be that core quantitative aspect of who they are and what their problem set is that you're going to focus on for how are you going to create a solution to what it is that they're facing.
So it sounds like somewhat like the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
Hmm.
You don't want to be like too narrow where your population size is so small. You don't want it to be too broad. You got to find,
Where you're not solving anybody's problems because you're trying to solve everybody's. Yeah.
yeah. I feel like a lot of people get lost in that because especially like the good people, they want to help everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would be great to help everybody, but you can't do it. You don't have the capacity to do it. You don't have the scale to do it. And, everybody has different problems. We're all individuals, right? But within categories, you have a group of people that are most likely going to suffer from the same problems. And so you're just trying to find a narrow enough category that you can be the person that is solving that particular problem.
Totally makes sense. What what's like the most common problem that you see like on people that you're like meeting with nowadays? How has like the market been shifting heading into 2025 compared to like a year or two ago? Because I've seen like a huge shift, especially on social channels.
Yeah, that they have no idea where to put their effort from a marketing perspective. That Google has changed the rules for SEO. Meta has changed the rules for advertising. Um, you know, Social media, like the algorithm isn't necessarily just feeding your information out to the people that you want to see it from an organic perspective. Um, there is so much competition out there that people are having a difficult time differentiating themselves from all the other people that are doing something similar to themselves. Barrier to entry in terms of product creation or service creation has never been lower because of the utilization of AI. So those are the major problems, right? And it's very difficult for people to be able to get past them. Um, what you need to do is be finding, the problem that you want to solve, the client that you want to be helping them with solving that problem, figuring out where they are already consuming media. So are they, you know, for small business owners, as an example, they're probably not scrolling through Instagram very much because they're too busy working. They're going to be in a place where they can connect with their consumers or with people that can help them solve their problems. So if it's an industry specific thing, like you know, metal workers, they're probably getting their information from a particular association or group that already has credibility. And so you're going to try to borrow the credibility of that by becoming a preferred speaker in that group, solving a particular problem that businesses or business owners in that category already have. So you want to find where they're already consuming media so that you can become a voice of knowledge and a thought leader in that particular category.
So what Gary Vaynerchuk says is just post everywhere doesn't work.
I mean, it works, but it's very much a shotgun approach. Like you're going to find that certain avenues are going to be worth it from a labor perspective, and other mediums just aren't going to do anything for you because your audience isn't there. People want to consume media in a lot of different ways. So having it written, having it in video, having it in audio, and having it, another manner, whether it's physical or however you can do it. Yes, that's important because people are going to consume it in different methods. But I would say, if you're just posting across 16 different social media platforms, only a couple of those are going to be your core platforms. It'll be like the Pareto principle. 80% of the revenue is going to be coming from 20% of the effort.
Right. I mean, in the beginning though, when you're first starting out, that could be valuable.
Yeah.
Like to
Yeah, I
figure
would
out like,
say,
hey, where's my messaging landing where it is isn't, and then like, oh, this is working. Let me just like 10x my efforts here.
yeah. I would say it would be much more valuable to go out at the beginning of selecting your ideal client profile and interviewing 10 people that fit that avatar and asking them where they get their information from.
Mhm.
I think that would narrow down a lot of the effort of just going and shotgunning your information all over the place.
Yeah, makes sense. Just don't want to, as they say, spray and pray.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes,
you want to be a more of a sniper with your marketing activities.
totally. Now, how have you been using AI to your advantage? Because there's a lot of misconceptions in terms of, oh, AI can just do it all for me, and then you copy and paste it into a blog post. However,
Yeah.
as you alluded to earlier, Google's pretty smart.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, they
knows
know how
when
to
AI
recognize that.
they know when it's not written by a person.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean there are all kinds of tools out there to check if something is written by AI. Yeah, if so what Google has said is if the content is still of value, they will continue to drive traffic towards it. But if it is redundant and repetitive, they're not going to drive the traffic there. They want to have a good user experience when somebody visits there. So if the bounce rate is too high, or if the page takes too long to load, or people aren't spending time on page actually reading the article, then they're not going to continue to drive traffic to it. They'll rank a different article. AI is an incredibly useful tool as a concept called a cognitive prosthetic.
Mm.
So think of if you were missing an arm, utilizing a prosthetic limb in order to assist you and replace functionality that you had in the past. A cognitive prosthetic is just an assistant for your brain. It's something that allows you to do things you may not have been capable of doing, whether it's through speed or ideation or implementation, but it's not meant to be a replacement for the human mind. There's a great book by a guy named Jeff Colvin who wrote Humans Are Underrated. And it's all about humans in the future of the workplace. And his argument is that technology will largely replace most roles in most companies. But any role that is driven by empathy, so the ability to change somebody else's opinion or change the way somebody else reacts or makes decisions, those will be the roles that are insulated from technological change. Because AI to this point doesn't have the ability to recognize and manipulate the ways in which people make decisions. If you feed all the data into it, like if you're feeding heuristics and that sort of thing into an AI chatbot or into Chat GPT as an example, you're going to get information that fits with that, but it still needs that human component to determine whether that's actually going to elicit the emotions that cause somebody to change the way that they make decisions. So financial advisors, because no people don't buy insurance, or people don't buy insurance, they're sold insurance, right? Nobody's going out looking, oh, I can't wait to spend hundreds of dollars a month betting that I'm going to die, right? It's sold to you in that you need to protect your family, you need to make this decision and go against immediate gratification in order to protect yourself from a what is largely an unlikely event taking place, but what would be a very drastic event. And so people need to be sold certain things that they're not going to go out and search for on their own. And so a lot of roles are going to be able to utilize AI, but AI won't necessarily be able to replace it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people just don't even talk about when there's innovation, how many jobs are created. They just talk about what's lost versus what's actually gained. So, I mean,
Mhm.
right now, with all the tools out there, it's never been easier to get a business off the ground, especially
Yeah,
if you're doing it on your own. I mean, you have
yeah,
AI, you have all sorts of tools where before you would have to be a website designer, you would have
yeah,
to write code, you'd have to have a copywriter, you'd have to learn all these certain things versus now it's you can at least get off the ground without spending a whole lot of money, which is a beautiful thing. And then
yeah.
at some point, uh, when someone is in business, like when do you recommend they need to like have someone like yourself come in and do an appraisal of like where they're at from a messaging point of view?
As early as they can afford it is the reality. You don't want to be spending too much time going down a path that's not going to be profitable. And even if it's just having a 30-minute conversation. Somebody like me, I don't charge for a quick conversation. I can give somebody points as to direction that they should or should not be going fairly quickly and set them on the right path. Whereas, if you spend months going down the wrong direction and you're not getting any traction and you don't have those reflection points already built into your calendar, like, okay, at this point I'm going to look back and see what's working. Then you could wind up spending months, years going down a direction that you're just eroding your personal savings and not moving forward.
So on the flip side of that, I would be interested to hear, I'm sure a lot of people may be interested, is what do you look out for when you're talking to someone about marketing who's like offering a service? Is there like red flags that,
Hmm.
you know, the average consumer may not be aware of just because if you're not in the space, you don't even know what to look out for.
Yeah. Like in terms of red flags from businesses, I'm always looking for somebody who's only concerned about their return. If they don't have a passion for solving the problem that they're talking about, I don't want to be anywhere near that. Um, you know, so much of sales and building a business is about believing that you have the best interest of your consumer at heart, and believing that you know what's in their best interest even better than they do. Because as a salesperson, you're trying to convince somebody to take an action that may not necessarily be in their immediate best interest, because they're going to have to defer some other form of immediate gratification in order to do what you are recommending to them. And so there has to be a belief that in the long term, what you're providing them with is going to be more beneficial than them taking that those resources, whether it be time, money, or other, and putting it into to what you're recommending. In terms of looking at marketers and being careful, I mean, the biggest one is guarantees, right? If they're guaranteeing you something that seems unreasonable, much like I don't know if you have the same ads against the financial industry as we do here in Canada, but even our Securities Commission goes out and says, has ads that show somebody saying, "Oh yeah, guaranteed, 18% rate of return every single year, no matter what," right? Anytime you're hearing that type of a guarantee, that's the red flags, that's the alarm bells, because that doesn't happen in really any industry. You can work towards getting there, but it's not going to be guaranteed.
Yeah, I had someone who was on this podcast actually, and they were in marketing. I was like, I'm interested to learn more. And they told me it was like $16,000 for 3 months. And if I didn't make a return, they would refund the difference.
Hmm.
I decided not to do it.
Hmm.
I was just like, giving you the money is really easy. However, no matter how good you are at anything, things go wrong and sometimes
Yeah.
things don't go according to plan. So I
Yeah.
was just like skeptical about it's kind of like when you get a new job, they don't pay you your year's salary in advance.
Hmm.
They pay you every couple weeks
Yeah.
to see if you're doing a good job or not.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean that set off my spidey senses the other day. And then I've recently been taking I tried finding on Instagram. Are you guys on Instagram or where are you guys
Yep.
at? You're on Instagram?
Yep. We're on, basically, I mean, to Gary Vaynerchuk's uh, credit, we're on all social platforms. The ones that we do the most marketing, though, would be LinkedIn. That's our primary location because we're looking to connect with business owners,
Okay.
not people scrolling through graphics.
Okay. Is it your company or you or both?
Both.
Okay, cool. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure when we come up with content, we tag you and everything. Because
Yep.
the part about social media that I've learned is like be social, like bring people
Yeah.
in, have conversations together. I mean, let's make it a nice, friendly place that it can be, not just a troll farm like some
Yeah.
people see it to be. But going back to that on Instagram, I've actually like gotten a little traction and someone wanted to like meet with me. And since you're in the financial industry, you may find this interesting. She goes,
Hmm.
yeah, I was a dental hygienist. I was overworked, underpaid. I have a passion for helping people with finances. I met with this company and they're really nice and they helped me and my husband out. They told us that we need to stop contributing to our college savings plan for our children and start investing in a an index universal life insurance policy for our 4 and 6 year old child. And I said, listen, you don't know me very well. I just met you. However, I wouldn't do that for like my daughter in a bajillion years. And
Hmm.
it sounds like these people are very nice, but I don't want you to go like 3, 4, 5 years down the road and then you realize that this random conversation that you had with this guy on you met on Instagram ended up being right, and then you end up having like a ton of remorse. Like
Hmm.
I felt really bad.
Yeah,
Because I was like, this person believed this all to be true, and I just kind of had to like, uh, I felt bad, but I was like, I have to like I feel like I even if she doesn't listen to me, I feel like I had to like tell her. Like
absolutely. Yeah.
that but it's like crazy that sometimes you can do the right thing and people don't believe you. So it's like how do you
Yeah.
keep doing the right thing?
Just keep educating. That's all you can do. Like with that individual, I would show them historical returns of the index that they're talking about. If it's the S&P 500, I would show them the dips and what happens if their kids are going to school at that point where the market's way down. Drawing from that portfolio is going to have a pretty dramatic impact on their ability to fund the rest of their college experience and those sorts of things. Like it's just about showing people the potential risks. It's not necessarily saying to somebody, you should not do this. It's just, do you recognize the potential downfall of the decision you're making? And then
Yeah.
allowing them to make an educated decision at that point.
Yeah. You just can't change people's religion if they believe something to be true, even if it works against them. And that's,
Yeah.
from my point of view, the hardest is when like you literally could like help someone, but they're just like, I don't want to say brainwashed, but they're pretty much brainwashed.
Yeah. Yeah. I when I was working in sales in the mutual fund industry, I used this concept called philosophy-based selling. So I would convince financial advisors of a particular investment philosophy or a strategy and style. And I used to talk to people and say, look, once you've sold somebody on a philosophy, whether it's religion, politics, or investments, they're never going to change because, we take that as a part of who we are and our core being. And so, the people that are that committed to a philosophy, you're right, they're not going to change. It's just like, Democrat versus Republican. You've got a tiny, tiny margin on in either party that are willing to flip back and forth, but the majority of people are set in their ways.
Yeah, and that can be tough because I mean, in the marketing industry, you have to continue evolving. You can't just keep doing the same thing that you were
Hmm.
doing probably just a year ago. Like you have to
Yeah.
be moving forward. You can't
Particularly
just
with how quickly technology is changing and the way in which people are being sold to, because the location of sales is changing dramatically. We had this mass exodus from brick and mortar and from in-person sales to it being largely digital at this point. A lot of people don't want to leave their homes; they'd much rather purchase something on Amazon or online. And so you have to figure out how to get in front of those people that are your ideal clients and craft a message that really hits those key pain points that they're feeling.
yeah. Yeah, it's like one of the good things is technology has definitely helped speed things up. Like you don't have to meet everyone face to face anymore, which is nice.
Yeah.
At the same time though, sometimes you do have to meet face to face to keep that personal human element
Yeah.
when the timing's right, but not like first meeting. It's like, why
Yeah.
would you want to meet face to face? Like, might as well stay in your pajama bottoms and hop on a
Yeah.
call. And if it's a good fit and you need to meet, then you meet.
Yeah. Well, and these types of meetings are much less I don't want to say intrusive, but it's easier for people to do them. It feels like there's less commitment. It you don't necessarily have the same level of obligation tied to this versus meeting somebody in person. So it allows you to get the information without feeling like you're going to have to sign something at the end of the meeting.
For sure. I mean, just like this podcast, like if you
Yeah,
didn't enjoy this conversation, you could literally just click the little end button and you're off.
that's
And
right.
you don't even have to like deal with me, which is
Yeah,
puts you in the powerful position. At the same time, though, like I've really enjoyed the conversation. We will make sure that we share on all the channels, tag you, and we see everyone next time. Bye, everyone.